Hi, loves. Welcome to AW Confidential Podcast. Today's guest is Shelley Zalis, founder and CEO of the Female Quotient. She is a pioneer, entrepreneur, and movement builder who has spent a big part of her career creating spaces where people feel seen, heard, and connected, myself included. When I met Shelley at the Female Quotient F1 Academy event in Miami, I asked her, how has she built something so impactful? Her answer was simple. It takes a village. Today, we're talking about leadership, community, belonging, and what it really takes to build something bigger than yourself. Shelley, it's an honor. Hello, how are you?
Oh my God, I'm honored to be here with you. And thank you for such a beautiful introduction. But most importantly, what I love the most about what you said was it was a feeling when you entered the space that you already felt like you belonged because you were surrounded by like-minded, lived experience, wisdom types of people. So it's an honor.
And I have a deep appreciation for what you've built because I come from the corporate background. And I do remember going into spaces and feeling very out of place. And it's not just being a woman, but being a woman of color. There's so many different reasons. So I truly, truly value what you're doing. You've spoken actually about finding yourself as the only woman in too many rooms. Most people spend their lives trying to fit into those rooms, myself included, whatever room they're given. At what point did you decide to build your own space and take this on? Because it's a quite a big task.
It depends on whether you follow a traditional model of the horse pulls the cart, or can you put the cart before the horse? And when the rules of the workplace just didn't work for me, I had to put the cart before the horse and lead and let my strength follow. And my soul cycle instructor said this in class the other day, and I like, oh my God, genius. So here's to you, David, my soul cycle instructor. And he just said, oftentimes we think we need the strength, the experience, the
Connection.
permission, the connections to lead. He said, it's backwards. He said, if you lead, the strength will follow. And so, wow. I was like, oh my God, that is a wow. And so mine, I think, was at the age of, I'm now 64. It might have been at the age of 25 when my girlfriend Charlotte Beers wrote a book that said, I'd rather be in charge. Like, how come you always are following the rules that make no sense? They don't work for you, but that's just because that's how it's been and how it's been and how it's been and how it's
And
been.
what we're taught.
Until you break a pattern and create a new one, you're going to keep following status quo. And, I was always told, I think it started at my first review, even though I didn't leave the workplace to start my own business at the time. But my first review, I thought I was perfect. I came in early. I stayed late. I said yes. But my review sucked. And it was 6 pages of typewritten notes. We had typewriters at the time. And it was that all the nice things, I'm smart and I'm kind and whatever, but that I take too many clients to lunch. I spend too much time listening to what the client wants. We're supposed to be order takers. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I refused to sign the review because I'm not signing that. And as a result, I was demoted, and someone was put above me and told, we're a research company and this is research. And, you know,
Thank you for sharing that, because I remember the first time I refused to sign a review. That changed everything.
and I couldn't afford not to sign, but I wasn't going to be an order taker. And that made no sense. And I remember looking at my boss saying to him, God, this is the biggest mistake of your life. And one day you're going to regret this, because I think that it's about relationships. And I don't need a free lunch. I want to know when someone's birthday is and how many children do they have, and all that. As a matter of fact, I was written up in a big magazine, several pages long, and they asked me about, one of the worst things that happened. I said, well, the worst thing was actually the best thing. And I told them about this, and they said, well, how do you feel that person feels today seeing you now? I said, I don't know, call him. And they called him, and they said, I'm with Shelley Zalis, and she wants to know, do you ever regret that terrible review you gave her? Do you remember the review? Yes. Do you feel bad? He says, no. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't feel bad? That was the worst thing that happened, because had you have agreed with me, you wouldn't be where you are today, a chief troublemaker. He said, so it's the best thing I ever did. He said,
Ugh.
and I'm so proud of you. And I watch you and I'm inspired. He's a really good friend of mine today, and we do a lot together. And so, there's always, with every no, there's a yes if you're willing to find it, if you have the resilience to keep pushing, if you believe in possibility versus status quo. And if all those people that said you're not the right one, it's not the right time, you're going to fail, you got to turn inward and believe in yourself and push the boundaries and just go. And the worst thing that could happen
Wow.
is you'll get a no. The best thing that could happen is you could get a yes. And I got a lot of yeses by believing in myself and finding the solution, because there's always the solution to every problem. You just have to find it. And it might not be the traditional solution. You might have
And
to go like this.
and it's
Zigzag.
funny because I'm sitting across from you, and we've met in person, and I've interviewed many people. You are a wow factor for me. And one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning of the interview was, I said the thing that I took with me from that was not only our interaction, you had just met me, but the fact that you said it takes a village told me so much. So what does that mean to you? Because we're so used to, and myself as an entrepreneur, I want to do it all by myself. And I find that as I'm scaling, I can't. I can only do so much. So what does that mean to you?
You can have a really good idea and be the first, which I've been the first a number of times, but you can't be the third. The first is the innovator. The second is the copycat. The third is the sweeper. If you don't bring the pack with you. So I coined a phrase, power the pack. A person alone has power. Collectively, we have impact. Whoosh. Because if you're going to be a pattern breaker or a pattern maker, you can create this new idea, but you got to bring everyone along at the same time, or you have to wait and watch for change to happen. And while it was your idea, you'll lose because, everyone didn't catch on fast enough. So I'm a 4-time movement maker. Every movement I have ever created, and I didn't realize how important it was at the time, but I have never been about the power of me or the power of you. I've always been about the power of we. And it's about collective, intentional action for change. Boom. And so, my first one was standardizing online ads and creating that. And I brought 10 non-competitive advertisers to the table. And this is before we had split screens and banners and interstitials. And I told all these marketers, I said, we don't have a 30-second TV commercial and a 32-second and a 36-second. We have a 15, a 30, and a 60. We need the same standards for online ads if we want this to happen. And that's a whole other story. But we created the standards for online at the time. The second was pioneering online research. I was the first in the world, but I brought everyone doing it together and to try and to experiment. And, so of course I was the mother of that invention. The third was the See Her movement that I brought to the ANA with my girlfriends, Patty and Gail. And it created ad standards for seeing women in advertising in an effective way. But if you don't measure what matters, you can't create standards. So we created standards by bringing all the advertisers to have a new measurement model. We have measurement for persuasion and relevance and likability. Now we have a measure for representation and reflection. So
You have these innovative, ideas. How do you work with sort of those who, and those could be communities, organizations, or sponsors? How do you work with those people who give you pushback and say, you know what, this is a great idea, but not now, or or it's not a good fit, or because I think rejection is such a big part of this journey.
but then they're not the right people. Because if you want to create new patterns, you've got to collaborate for change, and you have to be willing to share and to take risks. I don't talk about failure. Failure is a one and done, and who wants to set themselves up to fail? Set yourself up to take a risk. The question is, how big a risk are you willing to take? No risk, no reward. No risk, you're going to regret not doing it. Like, it's all in the language and how you give yourself the power and the position and permission to take a risk. And, that's just been my motto from the age of, I'd say 30 till today is, I operate, and of course it's scary, but that fuels me the fear fuels me into
Wow.
a whole new place. And today, when I created the Girls Lounge, which, was creating safe spaces for women to support one another, and then the Equality Lounge, we evolved with conscious leaders, men and women, once women started supporting each other. And now just the FQ Lounge, we have a community of over 8.5 million women in business across 100 countries and 30 industries, with conscious leaders, men and women in Fortune 500 companies, all creating access. Without access, you can't have opportunity. Without opportunity, you can't create growth. Without growth, you can't create change. I mean, all those things lead to the next, but it starts by starting.
And you've created this movement, this community, and it's real. You walk the talk. What truth about leadership did you have to learn the hard way? Because you've been in rooms that I dream about one day.
Oscar Wilde says, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
One of my favorite quotes.
And Sarah Jessica Parker says, trying to be a man is a waste of a woman. Think about that. And so I woke up one day and just said, what Charlotte Beer says, I'd rather be in charge. And I can't follow a pattern or be in a workplace that doesn't work for me. And so I gave myself the nickname Chief Troublemaker. I break all the rules that make no sense and I create new ones. Boom.
What are you still trying to learn?
Oh, I learn every day from everyone. And so, to me, it's the greatest gift, of giving and getting, so I really give forward, pay it forward with generosity, what I wish I had my whole career. And now I'm so grateful that I receive and learn from so many kind, generous, pay it forward people, and most importantly, leaders who realize that they need to, be conscious. And consciousness is about choice, prioritization, passion, purpose, and just saying, yes, I can. And the only way you can is if you believe in possibility and then walk into it and roll the dice and let's go.
When we met in Miami, you also shared that your daughter is building alongside you. My daughter was right there, and she's now doing, her own content on women in sports and F1, which, as you know, is a hot topic. Now, how has your definition of legacy and success changed now that you have your daughter working alongside you and you're collaborating on so many amazing projects?
I believe, God, that made me teary-eyed.
Don't do this to me, Shelley.
I know. Listen, I believe in legacy as legacy in the lifetime of your leadership. And I have the power to create change. I'm not waiting till I'm gone. This is just so important. And, Talia, who is the president of my company, she's a daughter of choice. She's been working for me since the age of 19. She's now 33, 34. I made her president at 26. My daughter, who is 30 now, joined us several years ago, runs all of our experiences. She's chief experience officer, and we're doing upwards of 80 events a year. And watching her evolve us, like we've evolved so much with her coming on board, and that she's she's not just following what I say to do. Trust me, that was the last thing she's doing. She's creating, she's innovating, she's bringing the change, she's making decisions. I used to work on every aspect of a lounge. I don't even know what lounges we're doing. I'm just told where to show up now. You know how amazing that is? And she's transforming our business. And Talia's doing the same thing. Like Talia's running the day-to-day business. And, I really can now be thinking about what's next and focusing on that. And they are leaders in their own most remarkable way.
Well, I have attended one of your events. I think it's amazing. It's like no other room. And I want to make sure that I leave our audience with what is one hope that you would like women to inherit from the spaces and the opportunities that you're creating, and not just professionally, but personally as well.
Believe in yourself. And most importantly, shut that bitch up in your head. There is no such thing as imposter syndrome. I mean, that's made up term that we start believing because we're told we're supposed to. You're amazing. I'm amazing. You're amazing. We're amazing. We're way more amazing when we all are together. So remember, power of the pack, and we're all here for you. You get a hug, hello, and a yes. And then the rest is up to you.
That's the best way to end. Thank you so much, Shelley, for your time, for your energy, and for your wisdom. Thank you.
Sending you so much love.
I want to thank Shelley for taking time today and for reminding us that we don't have to carry the vision alone. And to everyone listening, if you're building something meaningful, don't be afraid to invite others into your journey. I will take that with me today. It takes courage to build. Sometimes it takes a village. This is AW Confidential, where truth transforms. I'll talk to you soon, loves. Bye.